Have you recently bought raw land? Or maybe you just got a property that's waiting to be developed? If so, this video is for you. At this point, you're probably wondering what's next. You know you want to build something, but where should everything go? How do you choose a building site that integrates naturally with the landscape? What's your best orientation for your structures on the land? What about utilities? Where do they go and how do they all connect? So this is where site analysis and having a master plan come in. Every piece of land is unique, right? And a site analysis will help you understand its characteristics so you can create a functional and beautiful space that will be cherished for generations. I'm Christina, and I help property owners regenerate the land, design resilient homes, and connect with nature. Most of my projects involve off-grid or remote properties, so I focus on rural property developments rather than the urban plans that are tied into municipal utilities. After this video, you should be able to understand the 8 natural factors influencing your site and identify ideal building locations and orientations based on the land's unique features. So this is just the foundation. I cannot emphasize enough that every site is unique, and so ongoing observation through different seasons is essential for making those informed decisions. Okay, let's get started. Our first consideration is topography, and we see topography through these contour lines. First, we want to determine the different slopes of the terrain, and the basic contour lines from Land ID show this to us already. So let's take a look at these in yellow. The closer they are, the steeper the slope, and the further away they are, the shallower the slope. There is more of a south-facing slope here and a more north-facing slope there. And you'll see where the slope is more gradual or more intense. In places further from the equator, like this one, the slope direction can be a significant factor for heating. This is not only for heating our homes, but for ample sunshine in our gardens and greenhouses. If you're in a cold climate, consider south-facing slopes for sunlight and passive solar benefits. North-facing slopes we can reserve for things like walkout basements or crawl spaces, which are less frequented utilitarian spaces. Another important factor when we're looking at topography is the slope intensity. We don't want to build in a zone that is too flat so it doesn't drain easily. So a 5 to 10% slope is ideal. Swales and berms are a helpful method for managing water and preventing erosion. Swales are dug deep like rivers to move and hold water, while berms are built high like mountains or mounds to keep water away from where we don't want it to go. These not only prevent erosion, but they can hold water on the property and eventually recharge the aquifers below. This can also help with vegetation growth, which we'll talk about in the next section. Now that we have a general understanding of topography, we can now look at what ways the water will flow across the land. So this can be pretty intuitive, as we know water tends to collect in valleys and drain away from ridges. So first we want to consider drainage. We don't want to place our buildings in a muddy area or an area that's going to potentially have a lot of water running through it at one time. So as a general rule of thumb, like I mentioned, place buildings on higher ground and avoid those watershed areas. And remember, wetlands may not be visible. Wetlands can vary with the seasons, so it's crucial to observe the property throughout the year to identify these zones accurately. Spending the time on site allows you to understand the land better and avoid building in muddy or flood-prone areas. Getting data on a 100-year flood history can be useful for identifying some of the higher flood events. Now that we've talked about water, we can see how this relates to our vegetation strategies. We want to irrigate our plants and landscaping and make sure the water and the vegetation are strategically placed where we need them. Agriculture-friendly zones are often flatter or wetter areas, such as valleys or equator-facing slopes. So these areas should be reserved for gardens, orchards, and grazing. They naturally collect water, making them ideal for cultivation. Favor flatter, wetter areas and even valleys to maximize productivity. Avoid windy zones that could impact crops or trees. Orient buildings to agriculture zones so that they enhance visibility and foster a connection with the land. Flatter zones near ponds in this project are naturally wetter and are likely to flood. Another reason we want to be strategic about vegetation is for shading. So shading plays a vital role in the comfort of passive cooling. Being sensitive to seasonal shade provides cooling in summer and sunlight access in winter. The placement of sun in the sky is important not only for passive solar design, but also for daylighting, which brings light into the home. This matters especially at locations far from the equator in both the northern and southern hemispheres that need help with passive heating. In these cases, we want to maximize equator-facing windows for the winter sun. Passive heating is also important at places that are at higher elevations, but still closer to the equator despite their latitude. And at places closer to the equator, at lower elevations, we want to focus on keeping the sun off the buildings. Let's take a look at our Colorado example. So to study the sun's path, we need to get the winter and summer solstice angles for both the sunrise and the sunset. So this will be very different in every latitude. So we can use free resources for this like suncalc.org that provide both winter and summer solstice angles. Our fifth consideration is viewsheds. Viewsheds are important because we want our homes to be connected to nature without necessarily having to be outdoors, right? So if there are particular views we want to emphasize, this is where we consider the orientation of our buildings. Using windows to frame those views will make your space feel intentional and connected to its unique place on the land. We may also want to consider views that we don't want in our building zone. So accounting for view sheds of roads, neighboring homes, or other unsightly views can be useful. I like to mark those on the site plan as well. The sixth consideration is wind. So navigating wind can be very climate specific. Identifying prevailing wind directions can enhance our comfort and energy efficiency in warmer climates and can also pose a threat to heat loss in colder climates. The wind has a cooling effect, and so in winter, we want to protect doors and outdoor spaces from the wind. And in the summer, we can utilize it for passive ventilation. Luckily, at many places, the prevailing winds can shift depending on the season. In a mixed climate, we can utilize this to cool in the summer and block winds in the winter. So to find out which way the winds are coming from, you can use a wind rose. So you can get this wind data from local airports or nearby weather station, or even energy tools online. Our seventh consideration is access. So we access a property through a variety of roads and paths. And this can be easements, driveways, highways, or even walking trails. In case you're not familiar with what an easement is, these are typically roads going through a private property that others have been granted to use. So even though it's private property, a grantee can use that road. So you'll see here in the Colorado project, we have one up here. So these access points will help us define public and private zones and the gradient between them. So from the lens of public and private zones, we want to stay away from neighboring property lines as well as roads, as these areas start to feel more public. Our final consideration is utilities. This will ultimately dictate where our buildings will be placed. So plan utility placements carefully to minimize costs and enhance overall efficiencies. Utilities are a critical consideration in the site design as they direct and influence the placement of the buildings and the infrastructure. So once the general locations of the buildings are determined based off all the other factors and considerations we determined, it's time to plan the utility placement with efficiency and functionality in mind. Efficient utility planning minimizes costs and complexity by reducing the number and length of utility lines. For multiple buildings, grouping utilities in a central location streamlines those connections, as seen in many compact developments. And there you have it. We have covered 8 of the most important considerations that will impact where you put your buildings, how to orient them, efficiency, passive heating and cooling, and other key aspects of your property. Just remember, you should consider these before you start designing your buildings. So I pack a lot of valuable information in this video, but there's even more to share. For an extended version filled with additional tips and insights, check out the link in the description below to purchase access. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a resilient design tip. See you next time.